As a kid, I had an addiction to playing Pokemon. Some found satisfaction in SpongeBob's strawberry Riptide flavored Go-Gurts, and others would be content with going outside and making little houses for bugs out of twigs and leaves. As for me, coming home from school, hopping on my couch, and powering up my slick Game Boy Color with Pokemon Red version in it, shot me into a whole new dimension of joy and entertainment. While I would occasionally return to the universe as we know it for dinner and other real-world activities, Pokemon was persistently calling my name. As this routine frequented my life, Pokemon's background and Asian culture became ever so intriguing and influenced my interests and hobbies for the rest of my childhood. Whether it was for manga books or anime cartoons like Dragon Ball Z, you named it, I loved it. As I continued my educational career into middle school, I was told that I had to take a language. I had few options and really thought them through. I could take Spanish, move down to Mexico, and eat chips and salsa in paradise. There was also the language of love, French. I could certainly see myself going to France, climbing the Eiffel Tower, telling some beautiful girl, Bonjour, madame, mon estomac et mon blé de fromage, and then romantically running off there. And finally, there was Chinese, the language used to create Pokemon, as well as so many other things that I loved. At that point in my life, I had been extremely involved in my altered reality. I was always conjuring up some new Pokemon based ideas throughout my day. I'd be thinking about what it would be like to live in the world of Pokemon. The thought would give me goosebumps. This induced excitement was way too much to ignore and really helped me rise to a conclusion on choosing Chinese as the language I would begin studying. I kept replaying this reel in my head of myself becoming fluent in Chinese and then buying a Chinese copy of one of the early made Pokemon games. The idea of being able to go through this virtual journey in a foreign language seemed so intriguing. Thing is, though, everything in the game would still be the same. The graphics, the map, the Pokemon, all unchanged. However, all English would be replaced with Chinese characters. I know it sounds weird, but to me this seemed like such an incredible experience. I was so eager to begin learning all 151 of the Pokemon's name in Chinese. Well, you see, I had been a very naive little boy. It turns out that Pokemon was not made in China, it was actually Japanese. And in fact, to my surprise, there hasn't been any official Pokemon game released in mainland China. You can imagine how devastating it was finding out that the roots of my Asian influence had fallen through. Although I was greatly disappointed, I felt it was for the best to continue my Chinese studies. My dad was a huge influence when it came to why I continued. He helped me really understand how much business actually goes on between China and America. He also mentioned how this language could get me a job that would have me rolling in cash flow in no time. Okay, maybe not to that extent, but he emphasized how helpful it would be to get a job. At the time, I couldn't really grasp the importance of Chinese in today's economy. I just thought, like many other young kids, that it was cool and unique. During my 4 years of high school, I worked towards fluency in Chinese, at first not taking it too seriously, but later realizing that I might want to continue it into college. Looking back now, I realized how hard it is to learn the language. I honestly think that if anyone could teach himself or herself Chinese, or any other language for that matter, through Rosetta Stone, that they deserve an enormous award. Even though I haven't enjoyed the process of learning Chinese, I am thankful for the wonderful opportunities it's provided me. At the end of my senior year, I was able to do a host program in China through my high school, which allowed for me to travel to Shanghai, Beijing, and Xi'an. While in Shanghai, I got to stay with such an amazing host family who brought me in as if I was one of their own little dumplings. This turned out to be way cooler than I had pictured. The family showed me the side of China that you wouldn't get to see through tourism. I tried new interesting foods, went to school with my host brother, and learned what day-to-day life is like there. After a week, I split up from my host family and grouped back with the class as well as we headed to Xi'an. Aside from the basic tourist trap that is the Terracotta Soldiers, Xi'an had something very important to offer me. We visited a small elementary school in the middle of what seemed to be an ocean of farms surrounded by mountains that could touch the clouds. This is where I learned of China's wealth gap. This elementary school didn't have much to offer its children. A few classrooms with beat-up desks, a small collection of picture books, and a torn-up soccer field in the back with a few basketball hoops. Seeing these kids and what their future looked like was indeed depressing. However, I noticed something in this rambunctious kids. Here these kids lived in such a rural area, but they looked as if they couldn't be more content. When I had asked one of the small boys what him and his class did for fun, he responded with, everything. Obviously, this boy was equipped with quite the imagination, which makes me think that he could be a reflection of myself. In his eyes, this rural farmland is something different, something I can't wrap my head around. As a child, I too found another reality, but through the world of Pokemon. The collection of all these experiences I had in China made going there a big impact on my life. The experiences act as a motivation to travel more, as well as to work harder towards learning Chinese. Without that trip, I feel that I'd be lacking the energy to finish my studies. Now that I'm majoring in Chinese, I got big plans to make my way back over there, whether it be to study abroad or whether it be to work over there for a little and teach little kids, perhaps. I need to be in China if I'm truly to learn the language and culture. But why stop there? I figure after Chinese, I ought to further broaden my language palette and learn some Japanese. I'd finally get the chance to play Pokemon in another language. My dad and I often talk about how my Chinese is going. He couldn't be prouder that I made such an early decision to learn a new language. He always reminds me that it's not common for your 13-year-old son to approach you with some kind of blueprints to learn an Asian language. It's funny to me that my childish, naive imagination evoked by a pocket monster game has been the drive towards a career that many adults think highly of. I figure that my inner child is guiding me down this path, and that path I don't think I could ever let go of.